When Alabama's state Supreme Court ruled in February that a frozen embryo should be considered a person, not everyone was clear what that meant.
We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children.
The IDF and those kind of infertilization, that's not Oklahoma.
Others viewed it as the next phase of the fetal personhood debate.
After Roe v. Wade was overturned, actually, even before then, when Donald Trump promised to only appoint justices who would overturn it, I warned that red states would come for IVF.
Let's take a step back. Frozen embryos are used when? And fetal personhood protects whom? Fertility clinics usually freeze embryos during the process of IVF, or in vitro fertilization. IVF is often used to treat patients diagnosed with infertility. It's also used to prevent parents from passing known genetic conditions onto their children. IVF patients take medication to produce multiple eggs during a menstrual cycle. Those eggs are then retrieved from the ovaries and fertilized with sperm in a lab. Once an egg is fertilized by sperm, it's considered an embryo. Physicians can retrieve many eggs, sometimes upwards of 25 during a single cycle, according to the journal Fertility and Sterility. But of those eggs, according to the Cleveland Clinic, roughly 70% will successfully fertilize and become embryos. Just 50% of embryos progress to a stage suitable for transfer into the uterus. Embryos deemed unfit for transfer are typically disposed of. Patients can then decide to transfer and/or freeze their embryos. Next, a physician will transfer one or more embryos. If the embryo implants in the lining of the uterus, pregnancy occurs. If the transfer is unsuccessful, patients can try again with other frozen embryos. Patients also decide whether to discard, donate, or freeze any leftover embryos they have. So what does this have to do with fetal personhood? Fetal personhood advocates, and now the Alabama State Supreme Court, say that embryos, even before they are implanted, legally constitute people and therefore hold the same rights granted by the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment guarantees any quote-unquote person a right to life, due process, and equal protection of the law. In their view, discarding embryos violates 14th Amendment rights. In Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court ruled the word person, as used in the 14th Amendment, does not include the unborn. Until it was overturned in June 2022, the case guaranteed the right to an abortion up until a fetus reaches viability, which is typically 24 weeks gestational age. Now, with Roe gone, states are defining personhood themselves. Currently, 10 states define embryos and fetuses as people at every stage of pregnancy. Pennsylvania and Utah define personhood at an undefined stage, meaning it's unclear just when an embryo becomes a person throughout 40 weeks of pregnancy. Supporters worry IVF could be in jeopardy beyond Alabama if similar cases are brought forward in those states. Discarding embryos is common practice during the process of IVF, but if a court rules that an embryo is a person, that could open up fertility clinics and physicians to criminal charges. At least 24 fetal personhood bills have been introduced across the country just this year alone, according to the abortion rights group Guttmacher Institute. But despite these bills, Democrats and Republicans, even from states with personhood laws, have defended IVF. Republicans have largely stayed away from the question, though, of whether frozen embryos should be considered people.
In the process, they are destroyed, disposed of. Do you see that as murder? It's something that we've got to grapple with. We support the sanctity of life, of course, and we support IVF.
A CBS YouGov poll found 86% of Americans believe IVF should be legal.
SB 159 has passed.
And on March 6th, Alabama's legislature voted to give civil and criminal immunity to physicians providing IVF. In late February, Democratic Senators Tammy Duckworth and Patty Murray demanded a vote on their bill to protect IVF and other fertility treatments at the federal level. But Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, a Republican from Mississippi, blocked that bill.
The bill before us today is a vast overreach that is full of poison pills that go way too far beyond ensuring legal access to IVF.
Meanwhile, Democrats plan to make IVF a defining issue of the 2024 election cycle. The DNC has paid for billboards in battleground states like Arizona, Florida, and Michigan, and Democratic lawmakers aim to link threats to IVF to Donald Trump and his attack on Roe v. Wade.
What happened in Alabama, make no mistake about it, is a direct consequence of the hard-right MAGA Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.